Do you believe that Senator Clinton should release the transcripts of her speeches to Goldman Sachs?
Look, I think that our candidates are out doing what they should do in a primary. Did you have your eyes stitched closed? I'm sorry, Mr. Cheney, if you'd answer the question that I asked. You wanted to hear a question. Could I have an answer to the question? In this election,
well, it's just a yes or no
primary,
question. It's a yes or no question. Should she release the transcripts or not?
What I told you,
you're not answering my question,
answer
Senator.
For themselves. Did you have your eyes stitched closed? I'm sorry, Mr. Cheney, if you'd answer the question that I asked. You wanted to hear a question. Could I have an answer to the question? Look, I think that our candidates are out doing what they should do in a primary.
Secretary Clinton, if I may, Senator Sanders keeps bringing up speeches that you gave to Goldman Sachs. So I'd like to ask you, you've said that you don't want to release the transcripts until everybody does it. But if there is nothing in those speeches that you think would change voters' minds, why not just release the transcripts and put this whole issue to bed? You know, first of all, there isn't an issue.
Do you believe that Senator Clinton should release the transcripts of her speeches to Goldman Sachs?
Why should companies that do business with the government be allowed to give money in secret to benefit elected officials?
Secretary Clinton, we're going to get to the tax returns later, but just to put a button on this, you're running now for the Democratic nomination.
Right.
And it is your Democratic opponent and many Democratic voters who want to see those transcripts. It's not about the Republicans at this point. Let's set the same standard for everybody. When everybody does it, okay, I will do it.
You know, under these rules that the Supreme Court is allowed to go into effect, you don't even have to disclose where some of the money comes from.
Do you believe that Senator Clinton should release the transcripts of her speeches to Goldman Sachs?
This Congress doesn't lack for workable ideas for how to root out the influence of money in politics. This Congress just lacks a spine to do it.
A third of the money that went into the campaigns was never disclosed. You have no idea. It could be a foreign government. It could be a criminal cartel. It could be a drug cartel.
Do you believe that Senator Clinton should release the transcripts of her speeches to Goldman Sachs?
One of the things that Senator Sanders points to and a lot of your critics point to is you made 3 speeches for Goldman Sachs. You were paid $675,000 for 3 speeches. Was that a mistake? I mean, was that a bad error in judgment?
Look, I made speeches to lots of groups. I told them what I thought. I answered questions.
But did you have to be paid $675,000?
Well, I don't know. That's what they offered. So, even more and more and more money, and worst of all, money we have no idea where it comes from. You know, under these rules that the Supreme Court is allowed to go into effect, you don't even have to disclose where some of the money comes from.
You know your opponent, Senator Sanders, has been hitting you on Wall Street contributions, and including some paid speeches that you did for Goldman Sachs, among other banks. Let me ask you this. Why do you think one of these big banks paid you over $200,000 for a speech?
Senator Sanders, 1 second, please. Secretary Clinton, the question was about the transcripts of the speeches to Goldman Sachs. Why not release them? I said, look, there are certain expectations when you run for president. This is a new one.
I'm sorry, Mr. Cheney, if you'd answer the question that I asked. You wanted to hear a question. Could I have an answer to the question?
You've also said that you support renewable energy in our country, but have taken over $150,000 from the big oil and gas industries. These are industries which are in direct conflict with your interest in renewable energies. And I'm wondering if you'd be willing to take one step further away from the Republicans and take a stand against any more campaign contributions from them.
Yeah, I don't even know what you're referring to, but I believe strongly that we need campaign finance reform.
You tell a story that to me illustrates what has happened to our political system in regard to the middle class, in regard to democracy in the country as a whole, and it involves Hillary Clinton.
I had written an op-ed about a piece of pending bankruptcy
legislation. Mrs. Clinton evidently saw
The First Lady.
the First Lady. She was then First Lady. This is in the 1990s, late 1990s. Mrs. Clinton saw the piece, and I got a call from the White House. And they said Mrs. Clinton was going to be in town to give a speech in Boston, and would I come and meet with her? And she says, tell me about bankruptcy. That's right. And at the end of the conversation, Mrs. Clinton stood up, and she said, Professor Warren, we've got to stop that awful bill, referring to this bankruptcy bill that's sponsored by the credit card companies. The last bill that came before President Clinton was that bankruptcy bill that was passed by the House and the Senate in 2000, and he vetoed it. And in her autobiography, Mrs. Clinton took credit for that veto, and she rightly should. She got it.
And then?
One of the first bills that came up after she was Senator Clinton was the bankruptcy bill. This is a bill that's like a vampire. It will not die, right? There's a lot of money behind it. And
Bill her husband had vetoed.
her husband had vetoed it very much at her urging.
And?
She voted in favor of it.
Why?
As Senator Clinton, the pressures are very different. It's a well-financed industry. A lot of people don't realize that the industry that gave the most money to Washington over the past few years was not the oil industry, was not pharmaceuticals. It was consumer credit products. Those are the people, the credit card companies have been giving money, and they have influence.
And Mrs. Clinton was one of them, a senator.
She has taken money from the groups, and more to the point, she worries about them as a constituency.
So what does this mean, though, to these people, these millions of people out there, whom the politicians cavort in front of as favoring the middle class, and then are beholden to the powerful interests that undermine the middle class?
You claimed that you had learned from your failure, but I see today that's obviously not the case.
Thank you. Well, let me respond. Secretary Clinton, you just heard her. Everybody else does it, she'll do it. I will do it. I am going to release all of the transcripts of the speeches that I gave on Wall Street behind closed doors. Not for $225,000, not for $2,000, not for 2 cents. There were no speeches.
Do you believe that Senator Clinton should release the transcripts of her speeches to Goldman Sachs?
Look, I think that our candidates are out doing what they should do in a primary. They are debating the issues.
You're not
and
answering my question,
answer
Senator.
for themselves. What I'm doing is I'm telling you what I think should be going on right now in this election.
Well, it's just
in
a
this
yes or no
primary,
question.
and that
It's a
is-
yes or no question. Should she release the transcripts
What
or
I
not?
told you is I think that the primaries are doing exactly what they should be doing, and the candidates are being tested. Anyone who shrugs and claims that change is just too hard has crawled into bed with the billionaires who want to run this country like some private club.